Okay, we are up to Chapter 5, Plan 275. Leo and Abby sat opposite Oric and Echo at an enormous stone workbench. It was covered with a bizarre collection of objects: springs, test tubes, tools, half-filled beakers of unidentifiable gloop, tweezers, a mortar and pestle, welding goggles, and more. Leo picked up a small rectangle of metal. It was covered in cogs and wires and resembled a deconstructed wind-up toy robot. Echo smacked Leo's wrist and took the metal rectangle from him, laying it gently back on the bench and shaking his head. A catastrophe is brewing, and it appears that for Turners, doomsday is on the horizon, said Oric gravely. When you say on the horizon, said Abby, can you be more specific? Are we talking next week, next month, next year? Right now, said Oric. This very minute, to be precise. Continued Abby. And when you say doomsday, what sort of scale of doom are we talking? I mean, are we just a little bit doomed, or are we looking at a full 3-course banquet of doom? The whole doom buffet is about to be served, to use your analogy, replied Oric gravely. Fully doomed then, said Leo, still inspecting the objects on the workbench. The wheels of disaster are already in motion, said Oric. And there is no telling how soon Turners everywhere will feel the devastating impact. I'll cancel my holidays then, shall I? Said Abby. Leo exhaled. Oh, what is Plan 275, he asked. It is the very reason my brother and I are trapped here in this darkness, said Oric. He looked at Echo, who bowed his head sadly and muttered, Darkness, darkness. We would love nothing more than to live in daylight again, said Oric, but I am afraid that Echo and I must stay in virtual darkness to survive. Even the prolonged exposure to this phosphorescent glow that illuminates these caves has the potential to do us great harm. Tell us about Plan 275, said Leo. Oric rubbed the back of his simian neck. We too were Turners once, and we still are, I suppose, from a certain point of view. But thanks to Plan 275, we have been turn-blocked, and now we must endure our muddy state until the end of our days. Turn-blocked? Said Leo. It's when a turner is suspended while turned, literally preventing from returning to his normal state, and thus forever remains stuck between species. I believe that your father Vernon has had a similar experience. Leo pictured the tail that poked permanently from his dad's lower back, the consequence of being frozen in amber mid-turn by his vengeful sister-in-law, Aunt Ira. Although Vernon kept the tail well concealed, it occasionally snuck out from his overalls when he was busy tinkering with his collection of vintage Fiat 500s. We were normal everyday Turners once, Echo and I, said Oric. Or every night Turners, that is to say, twins. Although I was only half my brother's size, we were inseparable. But like many Turners, we never fitted in. We fell in with someone we thought we could trust, a scientist, or so he said, by the name of Dr. Clement Gonzalez. There was a low growl from Echo at the sound of the name. Gonzalez claimed to be pioneering a research project to learn more about Turners, continued Oric, to help us take our rightful place. He said, though we did not know at the time, Gonzalez was not his real name. He was, in fact, Clement Trimble. Emerson Trimble's son, muttered Abby, hiding behind an assumed name. Indeed, said Oric, but Gonzalez has had many names in his time. Aristotle Montblanc, Ronaldo Fontainebleau, Farticus McSplatpants. Farticus McSplatpants, said Leo. Actually, I made that last one up, admitted Oric, chuckling mildly. But we knew him as Dr. Clementine Gonzalez when he lured us into his confidence, then slowly subjected us to chemical experimentation. At first he claimed it would enhance our turning abilities. By the time we realised what he was doing to us, it was too late to escape. We had become victims of Plan 275. Echo huffed angrily. It is hard for my brother to relive what we went through, explained Oric. Gonzalez, you see, believed that Turners were a blight. He systematically captured Turners and tried to trap them in their animal state forever. He was single-mindedly committed to trapping all Turners permanently as animals, then releasing them into the wild, unable to return to their true selves, free to roam yet forever imprisoned. Leo tried to imagine being stuck inside a tern. It was a horrible concept. Even the few minutes he had spent as some animals had been tortured, or even the minutes he'd spent as some animals had been torturous. He shuddered at the memory of an early turn as a walrus when he had wrecked the lounge room, and his turn into a gecko in the toilet of the bus on the way to camp had been hideous. Oric continued. Clement Gonzalez succeeded in turn-blocking hundreds, maybe thousands of turners. He perfected a lethal cocktail of chemicals that froze our transformative cells. It was like being dead, but still alive, encased in a shell. He looked up at his brother. But we were lucky. Luckier than some. Although Gonzalez had succeeded in trapping us as guerrillas, we escaped, thanks to Emerson Trimble. He discovered what his son was up to and freed all the Turners who were trapped in his many laboratories. He gave us sanctuary. Sanctuary, repeated Leo. How long ago did all this happen? 12,783 days, said Oric. He shone the green orb towards the cave wall, revealing vast rows of short lines etched in the rock by hand. Leo followed the markings across the wall. There was a new row of lines for every year. 35 years, whispered Abby. Leo's stomach dropped as he realised now the truth of Yak Spike Island and the vast, densely populated zoo hidden within its rocky confines. Emerson Trimble brought them all here to Yak Spike Island, didn't he? Said Leo. All those trapped Turners who couldn't turn back into themselves. He created a safe haven. The zoo, said Abby, pointing upwards. We thought he was collecting endangered species here, but he was saving Turners, just like Noah's Ark. In a very, very similar way to that fable, said Oric. Emerson did the best thing he could have done for those poor souls who were turn-blocked. Apart from a few like us, they had lost their human instincts by the time he broke them out of his son's laboratories. They had inhabited their animal forms for so long that they were truly wild. Emerson gave them a safe place to live. That included bringing in scores of real animals so that they would be among their own kind. There are many generations of offspring now with no memory of anything but an animal life. Emerson never gave up trying to turn them back, but for most they were too far gone. Oric gestured to Echo and added, We were the exception. How come? Said Leo. We were among the last that Clementine Gonzalez turn-blocked. Though we were trapped as guerrillas, Emerson was slowly able to rehabilitate us. He taught us to communicate through sign language, then simple writing and years of speech therapy. I alone managed to regain the full power of speech, but Echo was not so lucky. Not so lucky, not so lucky, said Echo. Oric placed a hand on his brother's giant shoulder. He continued. Emerson dedicated himself to returning us, but it was all experimental, and he could only go so far without risking damaging us forever. Leo's eyes had adjusted to the low light, and he peered at Oric's face. It was a disturbing sight to comprehend his features, a literal battleground between two species, neither quite the victor. His heavy simian brow gave his eyes a permanent sadness. Emerson tried a concoction of plant cells extracted from phosphorus mosses in the hope of triggering our turning instincts back into action. They worked to an extent, but at a great cost. First, our skin pigment became bleached, and in time, we became light-sensitive. We cannot leave the darkness, not for more than a few minutes. How did it all go wrong in the first place? Asked Abby, between father and son. I mean, surely Clementine wasn't always this bad. Clementine was not a Turner like his father, said Oric. This is where the troubles began. It happens sometimes. The turn skips a generation. As Clement grew up, Emerson tried to involve him in his work, but Clement became resentful that he had not inherited the power that his father had. Oric leaned in and lowered his voice. Then there was a terrible accident. What happened? Asked Leo. One night, an acquaintance of Emerson's turned into a jackal and attacked Clement. It was a ferocious attack. Apparently the man turned and simply lost control. Clement was only a slight thing, all bones like his father. Clement was dragged off into the night in the jackal's mouth and never came back. And the turner who attacked him never came back either. Leo imagined the horror of it. The non-turning son attacked by a turner. It almost made him feel sorry for Gonzales. But then he remembered all that had happened back in the caves at Camp Stillbone, and the cold malice he had heard in the voice of the man who had caused so much pain for so many turners. A man he had never seen, but whose twisted plans had ripped into Leo's world. Some years after Clement's disappearance, continued Oric, rumours started to crop up of a revolutionary scientist who had found a way to help turners control their turning. We found him, or more to the point, he found us. Little did we know that it was Clement instigating Plan 275. Let me turn you back to the goats for a minute. There they are. Turners began to vanish, slowly at first, then more and more. Though he dared not believe it, Emerson suspected that his son was involved. He devoted himself to finding Clement, and in time he uncovered the laboratories, like the one we were in, and shut them down. But he never found his son. And now Emerson is dead, and a terrible task has befallen you both to track him down and put an end to Plan 275 forever. Why us? Said Leo, exchanging a glance with Abby. Emerson was very good at seeing great potential in unexpected places, said Oric. And if there is even a 1 in a billion chance that Gonzales is in possession of some sort of antidote to the chemicals he has been long using to turn our species into turn blockers, then you and your sister must stop at nothing to find him. Abby exhaled loudly, making a raspberry sound with her lips. Is there any chance we can do this without getting maimed, mutilated, or disfigured? Oric pondered the question deeply before finally replying. Nope. Just checking, said Abby. She turned to Leo. Wherever are we going? You go first. Okay, that is the end of chapter 5. Our next chapter, chapter 6, is called Trouble Over the Horizon.